Wagner from English with Wagner, and I'm interviewing Romina from
Chile.
Yes.
Oh, Chile.
Or Chile. Yeah, it's Chile, isn't it? So yeah,
Chile.
yes, from Chile, and she was one of my students in New Zealand for quite a while, right? When we used to,
like almost 6 months.
That's right, for almost 6 months. And we became friends. And then I taught her a little bit more as a private student. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember. It was such amazing classes. We had so much fun.
So much fun, right? Therapy, gossips, and learning English at the same time, right? It was kind of a combo. Yeah, we did a combo.
Yeah.
Romina, for starters, can you tell everybody a little bit about you? What do you do for a living and why you?
Well, I'm a little bit of everything. When I was in Chile, I studied at the culinary school. So I'm a pastry chef. And then I decided to travel to New Zealand because I want to try new stuff. And that's what I've been doing. So I've been working a bit as a pastry chef, but also I've been doing many other things. Try to reach this dream, like doing something that I really want, and not being a baker or pastry chef.
Yeah, you haven't found yourself yet. You have actually, right? You told me you want to be an artist.
Yeah, I think at the end, I think it's a combination of many things, like makeup artist, something that it doesn't become like routinary. Anything that can take me new things to learn, that's me.
Feel you. Yeah, that's why I became a teacher. I was actually bored of doing the same things over and over again. I like having a routine. I don't mind like going to work and working, but I like doing new stuff every day. And that's why I like living in New Zealand and working there, because I met people from all over the world. And that was the great part. And I would always teach different people of different nationalities every week. So for me, it was super fun. That's what I really liked. How long have you been in New Zealand for?
It's almost 3 years. I'm gonna turn 3 years in 28th of August. So nearly there.
Nearly there, right? I stayed in New Zealand for 4 years, so almost the same time as me. Yeah.
Almost, yeah. A year behind.
Yeah, a year behind. And what are your plans now? I know you're stuck in New Zealand, like stuck in a way because you can't really leave the country, but what are some of your plans for the future?
Well, my plan for the moment is getting to the school to study a degree in business and management. So after that, I will have an open work visa. But yeah, my main plan at the moment is just keep studying in English, which is very interesting because you learn many new things. Your brain develops in another way all the time. So even though you are learning skills from math or the administration, you're also pushing yourself to think in another way. Because when you think in Spanish or your native language, even when you're learning something new, it's in a way, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a different way when you learn it in another language.
So, absolutely. Yeah, it is not the same thing. And the style is different, you know, everything is different. The style of writing is not the same. The way people express themselves is different. And my question to you is, what was your English like before studying there? Before studying English?
Well, when it's been like very, very stages of my life. When I was at school, like the high school, I really suck. It was my worst level of English, very, very beginner. And then I traveled to the States and I spent like 2.5 months in a small town with only English. So that was my start. And then I learned the basis of my English.
Yeah.
So then I come back to Chile and I spent like 10 years without practicing. Just the movies and reading like with subtitles and things like that, but never very into. And then when I decided to come here in New Zealand, I think instead of beginner was like low intermediate, something like that.
Pre-int. Yeah, that was your level actually. You were a pre-int student when you first started the course. And then my next question for you is, what did you think about studying overseas? Was there a difference for you?
I think, to be honest, it's the best. It's like you don't have to think. In a way, you just do it. You don't realize how to. Actually, I think it's the easiest way to do it. When you're learning in your country, you get into a moment and you put all your attention, and then you start to study, and you need to remember the grammar and all the things. But when you're in another country, you use the tools that they teach you all the time. So it's like, oh, I used to say this, and oh, this is the right way to say it. So it's faster, easier. That's what I really think. It's faster and easier. And you don't realize, because you're doing a job every day, but you don't realize that you're doing a job.
Yeah, exactly. But my question to you is, and did you struggle while studying the language when you were in, while in New Zealand?
Depending on the topic. For example, the present perfect or things like that, I struggle at the beginning, but not that much. But my real weakness is the conditionals. I'm still struggling with that. The first, the second, and third. It's like, oh my God. And I really need to think, like, stop to think. And even though when I stop to think about it, I don't do it like completely well. I do it like half and half.
It takes a while,
so, yeah.
Right? But people think, I don't know if you agree with this, but do you think that everybody has this idea, or most people have this idea, that just because they're living overseas, they don't have to study or learn the language?
That's completely no. I mean, that's the most important thing. If you are traveling to an overseas, you need to learn the language. I mean, there's the better way to communicate. You need to think about this. Even when you talk the same language with the people around you in your country, sometimes it's hard to communicate because you have ideas and feelings and you need to put this in words. It's already hard to read in your own language. So if you go another country with another culture, with another feelings, another way to think, you need to make it easier with the same language. So you have to do it.
Yeah, and there are many people who have this idea that they just need to live overseas, you know? I'm just gonna live abroad and then do an English course and that's it. I'm like a sponge, you know? So I don't have to think much. I'll just have to do it. That's not how it really works, right? Because there are people who've lived overseas for many, many years and their English sucks. Their English is really, I'm like, how come?
I don't want to be part of them.
Yeah, exactly. And you are motivated, you work hard, you did a level 4 course, you did your English course, then you started having private lessons. Well, first the English course, then the private lessons. Yes, you're studying English.
And then the level 4.
Level 4. Now you want to do the level 7, right? Level 7.
Yeah, the level 7.
Yeah, which is really good. I did level 7 too. So, I mean, it is, people don't really get that. They think they don't need to do anything. They just need to,
no.
Or when they're living with Brazilians, and even if you don't live with people that speak your language, you still need to do the work. Doesn't mean just because you're living with a native English speaker that you're going to have perfect English. That doesn't mean anything. He's going to say whatever. It depends on the situation. So you have to do the work. In your case, you went to college, you're going to college again, and your English is getting better and better. And speaking of expressing yourself in your language and in your second language, when you were studying, well, and you're still studying, do you translate stuff all the time or not?
Well,
That's a
at the
problem.
very beginner, when I was 18 in the States, I used to do it a lot. I mean, if you're not raised in a way with two languages, that's the way. I mean, it's not the better way, but it's the natural way that you do it.
Yeah, but were you alone or not?
I was alone over there.
Oh, no.
What did you say?
When you first started studying the language and in Chile when you were 18, were you translating stuff all the time or not?
All the time. All the time. It's just, I think it's part of the process.
But were you studying,
now?
I forgot, my question was, but did you have a teacher or not? Were you just studying on your own?
I was studying at school, and the school is, I didn't study like English. Yeah. Like the only English courses that I have done is in the Kiwi English and the level 4. The other language, the other knowledge that I have is because I was traveling overseas, but not in my country, in my school, I never learned it. I was the worst student ever. I couldn't understand.
Yeah, and
I just started when I traveled to States.
What I always say to my students and people that come to me is that translation doesn't help very much. Why? Like, for example, when you're in school, like a regular school, they teach you through translation because that's the easiest way. You have like, I don't know, 10, 20, 40 students even. And they have to find a way to talk to everybody. And it's very complicated. But there is a difference between speaking English or learning English and learning about English. So you're learning about English. Okay, so this is a verb and I don't know, this is a book and you say libro or livro and that's what it is. Okay, so you're talking about, that's your topic. The topic is English, but you're not actually speaking the language. And then you're not going to learn anything. It doesn't make any sense. I don't blame the teachers like that work in public schools because they do their best, you know, it's very complicated. They don't have any resources. It's difficult when you have 40 people to teach. But at the same time, there are many people who study on their own here in Brazil and overseas. I mean, lots of people who do that. And they're constantly translating everything. So like, for example, if I teach them like, I don't know, but let's say an idiomatic expression or even objects, something simple like level 1. Okay, book. And they're like, oh, okay, book. And then they go on Google Translator. Book. Libro. Why? Can't you see it? It's a book. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, I think I think it's the natural process. But at some point, you need to push or to encourage yourself to stop to doing. But what actually really happens to me now is I feel like I'm divided into two brains. So if my first brain is like the colloquial or the most typical conversation, and I don't need to translate anymore. So if I'm talking to you, I can say whatever I want, and I don't have to think much. At least I have something like in grammar, or that's the reason because I make the most mistakes, like with the S, the ED at the end of the word, or whatever. But the other part of my brain is when I'm having like very deep conversations with native people, because you won't have a deep conversation with people who is not friend or who is not native in English. So
someone you don't know very well, right? You're trying to have a meaningful conversation.
When you have meaningful conversations, then I had to translate, and I make the major mistakes because it's something that I need to think what I want to say, even in Spanish. It's like when you are trying to find the right words to say something, and becomes or appears firstly Spanish, and then it's like, oh, how can I say this specific thing? And then I translate. So I think I'm in the halfway to become like better or almost native or more bilingual.
More advanced, right? More advanced.
Yeah, more advanced, because the half of my brain, it can completely go straight to English, but the other half, not yet.
And and I get what you mean, right? Because you're in a process of learning stuff. We have a process called, I think I can't really remember. Okay, it was a long time that I went to school. And interlanguage or yeah, interlanguage. So basically you're just, there is a process that you are associating what you say in your language to the English language, but in your brain. So you struggle
Yeah,
sometimes when you're having a conversation, not necessarily getting Google Translate and being like, no, in your head. So you're having a
yeah,
conversation, you're like, this is how I would say this. So you're constantly thinking, and that's part of the process. And when you have
yeah,
these conversations, you can definitely learn a lot of things. But that, regardless if the person is a native English speaker or not, you could talk to someone, I don't know, someone from Argentina, and they speak very good English, and you're like, wow, I learned so many things, you know, like, oh, I
yeah,
know this word, and okay, this is really good, especially someone who can speak English as their second language, because they can give you some tips and it'll be like, hey, why don't you say this instead of that?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But if you're very honest with yourself, that won't happen. If you find someone who can speak your native language, you don't even realize how you're gonna turn. And
Oh, yeah, but I
actually,
mean, like, oh, yeah, I said someone from Argentina, but I don't know, someone like from Germany,
yeah,
okay, that
yeah,
doesn't speak
that's different.
Spanish. And then,
Yeah,
okay, great, because I can learn a lot of
yeah,
stuff, a lot of things from this person. And I
that's
remember I
true.
had this friend, she's from Argentina, and she's an English teacher too. She used to teach in New Zealand. And I mean, my English, my Spanish is not great. I never really focused on learning Spanish, but we had some really good conversations, and it was always really nice. Something that I never had maybe with some native English speakers. I was like, yeah, but with her, not in terms of learning, but I mean, we were friends. So
Yeah,
we talked about so many things, and it was so interesting. And you end up practicing, you know, you're constantly
yeah,
practicing and thinking about other things you want to say or how to express yourself. You're constantly studying, aren't you?
that's true. Yeah, completely true. And actually, I think there is a new thing that it happens to me, like because my brain is learning many things in English. So there's a new things that you learn it in English and you don't have any way to translate it to Spanish, and you don't know how to translate it.
Which is great,
So
right? And you're like, I just know
it
it.
is like, fuck, how can I say this? Like, fair enough. How can you translate that? Fair enough. It is what it is. And
It
my
is,
people, my family
yes.
look at me like, what are you saying? I don't know.
Exactly, because don't you think that this is just because people think that there is always a correlation between Spanish and English? Like, oh, if I say fair enough in English, there is an expression that is exactly the same in
And it isn't.
Spanish. No, sometimes it's just the way people express themselves. For example, in Portuguese, we have the word beauty, which is
Mm-hmm,
beleza. And
mm-hmm. Beleza.
in São Paulo, we say that when we're like, cool, are you okay?
It's okay.
We say,
Beleza.
beleza?
Oh, good.
Beleza, beleza. And then sometimes we use the abbreviation like BLZ, beleza. So it's like just the consonants when we're texting. So we're like, oh, beleza, beleza. And that's it. So this is slang for us. So slang
Yeah.
is different. And you need to
This,
know
yeah.
the cultural aspect of that, you know, for
Yeah.
example, and it's very interesting when you learn English, you also learn about history, like why people say it like this, why do they use this idiomatic expression? And then when you Google it and you look up, I don't know, I was teaching this word on a video that I made for TikTok, which was like, your ass is grass, you know, the ass is grass. And I was
And
like,
what does that mean?
you're going to get in trouble or murdered. But I mean, when you are buried in the cemetery, so your ass is going to turn into grass, like you're going to die. Yes.
Oh,
And then it's funny because when you're studying that, you can look it up on Google and put etymology, which is like where that
yeah.
expression came from. And then they will tell you why people say that. So not only you're learning English, but also about history. And you're like, ah,
And
that's
makes sense
another.
because you can relate it and learn it faster, like remember it
And
faster.
because it's weird, like, why would you say your ass is grass? It doesn't make any sense. Or for example, winner, winner, chicken dinner. And you're like, winner, winner, chicken dinner. What does that mean? Because when people used to go to Las Vegas back in the day, when they won the prize, they would have chicken for dinner. So they would say, winner, winner,
Oh,
chicken dinner. And they were like, "Oh, that's why." So it's interesting. And that's the thing. People think that learning English is like an obligation, at least for Brazilians, you know, sometimes, I don't know, for Chilenos, you know, the Chileans. But here in Brazil, there are many people who think that learning English is an obligation, like, oh, I have to study. But you can learn so many things. You can listen to your favorite songs. You can watch a movie.
yeah.
You learn
You
about.
can have a completely other different meaning for many things.
And by learning English, didn't you meet people from all over the world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not only that, your brains develop the process of thinking in a completely other way. And then I don't know the rest of the people, but for me, it's been surprising how I start to think in another way. I mean, affects any area of your life, like not just the cognitive process. It's like everything is related, and you don't realize how related it is. And when you start to think in English or study another language, you, for example, you realize that you like cheese with apples instead of just apples or cheese not together. It's something that you don't even understand why it happens, but it happens. So
yes, exactly.
yeah.
And like you met people from all over the world, you learned about another culture. And I always say that English is part of the faculty of arts. Like, what does that mean? It means that you're not studying like mathematics, science, which can be in a way for some people like me, not science necessarily, but like, I don't know, physics, mathematics. It's boring in a way. For some people, it can be quite interesting. But when you learn English, you can watch a movie and learn a lot of things, something which
Yeah.
entertainment. You can go to the theater and watch a play in English and learn lots of things, practice your listening skills, read or music. So you have to make English part of your life, because even though you are in New Zealand, don't you think that there are lots of people who live there and don't make English part of their lives?
Oh, well, yeah. There's, I don't want to say nationalities, but there's a huge part of groups from borders of overseas that overseas that they are not interested at all in get involved with the language or the culture.
Oh, I know who you're. I know the group you're talking about. Yeah, but also
yeah, they're very close mind.
From other regions too, right? There are people who live. I don't know. For example, a bunch of Chileans and Brazilians living together in the same house.
Yeah.
No, they won't speak English unless they want.
No,
to,
they won't.
you know. For example, I live with people from South America, only Brazilians maybe for a while. But then, I mean, I was there to teach, which was different. But it's good when you, even like, for example, let's say I was living with you. We would only speak English, right? And maybe I would speak Spanish with you so I could practice Spanish and learn and be like, okay, I'm speaking Spanish with her because I want to learn her language.
And now, I probably will speak Portuguese.
Yeah,
actually, exactly. That's what I'm doing sometimes with my flatmates because they are all Portuguese. I'm from Brazil.
What's her name again? I met her.
Elisa.
Lisa.
I have Elisa Almeida, Tiago something, and Felipe.
Ah, okay. Elisa is the one that got pregnant, isn't it?
Yeah. Now she has a baby, Nene. She has a Nene.
True. Nene. So yeah.
I call him Nene. Nene, how are you? Nene.
Yeah, so I mean, like it doesn't, for example, when I learned English, no one in my family spoke the language within the household, you know? So like I had to learn English on my own and I didn't have access to internet. I did, but only when, right after I turned, I don't know, 15 maybe. So before that, I had no access to internet and I could still speak a little bit of English. I could. And it's all about effort. There are people that are in different stages of life. For example, when you were learning English for the first time, you were just a teenager. And then it wasn't really exciting, you know, because let me give you an example. You remember, right, when you were studying with me, in the English school, we had teenagers. I think I remember
Yeah.
complaining about, so I know, yeah, it was you.
Oh,
There was a student that hated the teenagers. Do you think they spoke English a lot?
I, I think they do because their situation is completely different. They
Yeah,
were forced to be there. They had English at high school, so they are obligated. They forced.
yeah,
English
but
is probably native for them.
yeah,
It's different.
exactly. So the point is that they were obligated to go to school, to high school, and they were not interested at all. And then people think, oh, I'm just going to send my son to the States
Mm.
or to New Zealand, and he's going to learn English. Not necessarily, because you remember really well that there were students coming from Glendowie College to study with us again, and they had been in high school or school, right, for a year. And I was like, you still don't know English? Because they're just getting information. It's different when you go to
It's
an English
different. Yeah.
school. You play
You
games.
definitely need to be interested in to learn something if you want to do it. Otherwise, there's no way to do it.
Exactly. That's my point.
At
And
least you're a baby and you were raised with 2 languages, but when you're an adult, when you have the power of decision, you need to want to do it.
exactly, including teenagers, because they can decide if they want to speak the language
Yeah.
or not. And most of them were just quiet in high school. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I had a student, you didn't really meet her. Her name is Kira from Russia. And she told me she did the 3 years of high school. And she came to our school, to the school where I was working. And then I said, why are you here? She said, well, because I still don't know how to speak English very well. And I was like, oh.
How can you?
But the reason for that was because she was very shy. I don't think she was very happy going to school. She was super smart. But the thing is, you need to be really interested in learning, because when you